When I was a kid, back in my small hometown of Atascadero, California, I used to go to cruise night with my family. This is when I started becoming interested in cars. Oh yeah! Most of the cars were from the 60s and 70s, so naturally I became obsessed with these boxy, powerful, loud machines. Until I started working at this channel, muscle cars were pretty much all I cared about. But nowadays, it seems that there are less and less new muscle cars on the market. In fact, I would argue that there's only one traditional muscle car left. What if I told you, though, that muscle cars are still being built, only no one would ever call them that, even though on paper, they are muscle cars? Well, today, we're gonna take a short look at the history of these fine machines, find out what actually defines muscle car, and then I'm gonna convince you that a crossover can be one. I made a grab. Thank you to Off the Record for sponsoring this episode of Wheelhouse.
And then you could so then we'll just reset back in the same spot.
Imagine this, you're driving down the highway going 1, 2, 10 miles an hour over the speed limit in your finally running pony car. But what's that behind you? Are those sirens? Not again. I can't afford another ticket or be subject to increasing insurance fees over the next 3 years on top of that. There's gotta be a better way. Don't plead guilty to that ticket, Nolan. Fight it with the help of Off the Record. Off the Record connects you with local, experienced lawyers who will fight the ticket on your behalf. They have a 97% success rate of keeping that ticket off your record. Oh, what? That's not good enough? They also have a money-back guarantee if they are unable to get the ticket off your record or get the fees reduced. Thanks, Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/donut or click the link in the description below to get 10% off your first ticket today. Take it away, Nolan. So what are the actual parameters that defines a muscle car? We're gonna look at the ground rules for what defines this specific type of car, but first, let's find out where they came from. And to do that, we're gonna have to go back to 1960s Detroit.
Detroit, the crossroads of half the population of the United States.
People usually give credit to the Pontiac Le Mans GTO for starting the muscle car era. The high-performance package combined Pontiac's biggest engine with their smallest car. The GTO was a hit, and GM's own Heritage Center website boasts that this car, quote, started the muscle car era, but I only half agree. In the decade prior to the GTO, a lot of manufacturers were experimenting with the big engine, small car formula. As early as 1949, Oldsmobile dropped the Rocket 88, a relatively lightweight V8 powered coupe that was meant for the drag strip. 2 years later, Hudson released the Hornet, which had a super powerful inline-six engine and a low center of gravity, which made it great for NASCAR's fledgling dirt ovals. In 1952, the Hudson won 27 of NASCAR's 34 events that year. Amazing. Finally, in 1957, Rambler released my favorite proto-muscle car, the Rambler Rebel. This funky-looking four-door had a V8 more powerful than anything Chevy was putting out at the time, and it was the fastest sedan in America with a 0 to 60 of 7.2 seconds. All of these cars predated the GTO, and even though they're probably not what you would typically consider to be muscle cars, they proved that the demand was there and helped convince Pontiac that the GTO was a good idea. Racing on both ovals and the drag strip was really important to the popularity of the muscle car. It was basically the main component in generating sales, especially in those early years. You know, you win on Sunday, sell on Monday. And as it happens, drag racing and ovals mean you're kind of going in a straight line for most of the time, except for NASCAR where you're turning left. Going fast in a straight line is a key ingredient in the muscle car recipe. If a car handles well, that makes it a little less muscly in my eyes, but it's not a total disqualifier. A third motorsport forced muscle cars to get light on their toes. It was called Trans Am racing. The SCCA first organized the Trans American Sedan Championship in 1966. Through the years, the field was dominated by cars like the Ford Mustang, Chevy Camaro, and Dodge Challenger. These cars were a little different than your typical muscle cars. The Mustang and Camaro were what's called pony cars. They're smaller and more tossable through the turns, but muscle cars nonetheless. That being said, I think a good handling car can still be a muscle car. It's just a different kind of flavor. With that history in mind, let's take a look at a checklist of what every muscle car of the time had in common, which will give us a baseline definition. Number 1, they were all front engine, rear wheel drive. 2, they were all quick for the time. 3, they all had 4 seats. And last but not least, they had big old engines with plenty of power. I think these 4 features are the foundation of the muscle car. Now imagine a car has all the base muscle car ingredients but only 2 seats. Does that make something like the new Supra a muscle car? What about the Jaguar F-Type? What about the Viper? Since all these cars only have 2 seats, their practicality is weakened considerably, making their focus purely on driving even more apparent. They're not muscle cars, they're sports cars. The exception to the 2-seat rule is trucks. I do believe that rigs like the Ford Lightning and the Dodge Little Red Express can be considered muscle trucks. Yes, they only had 2 seats, but you could lay a pallet of Wrangler jeans in the back, making them very practical. So let's talk about doors for a second. For a very long time, I believed that muscle cars can only have 2 doors. But as you look back into history, I'm not so sure that holds up anymore. The Oldsmobile Rocket 88 that I just mentioned, the one that started it all, it was available with 4 doors. The Rambler Rebel that I love so much also had 4 doors. I think the debate really boils down to personal preference. If you give me the choice between an Impala Coupe versus sedan, I'm gonna choose the one with less doors. It's just cooler looking, but that doesn't make the sedan any less muscly. All right, so we've covered seats, we've covered doors. Let's talk about hatchbacks. It's not a feature you'd associate with the muscle car. It's usually reserved for compact cars and minivans. Admittedly, there are not many muscle cars with hatchbacks, but I counter with this very prominent example, perhaps one of the most popular muscle cars in the US, the Fox Body Mustang. Available both in the more traditional notchback and with a big old clamshell, the Fox Body kicks ass on the drag strip and at getting groceries. It's a very useful car, still very muscly at the same time. So just to reiterate, rear wheel drive, 4 seats, quick for the time, and can be a hatchback. I think we're ready for the grid. Here's my graph with certain cars blocked out to be revealed later on. At the center of our muscle car matrix is the current Dodge Charger RT. This 4-door bruiser is ubiquitous across the US and has every quality of a muscle car. It looks the part, it's quick in a straight line, it's affordable, and very practical when it needs to be. It's the center of the muscle car market. But why did I put it in the middle? Well, our x-axis is a spectrum of practicality and styling. At the very right is Coke bottle, the term used to describe the shape of cars like the current Dodge Challenger, the late 60s Chevy Chevelle, and the 2nd-gen Ford Mustang. I don't really know why they call these cars Coke bottles. They don't really look like bottles from any angle, maybe from the top, I'm not exactly sure, you can debate it in the comments. To the left is the hatchback side of the spectrum, where I put the Fox Body hatch. The y-axis is a lot easier to explain. You got low power at top and low power at the bottom. With these parameters in place, the matrix can be split into 4 quadrants. In quadrant 1, you've got cars that lean to the Coke bottle side of styling with Mo Power. These can be considered traditional muscle cars. Your Challengers, your GT500s, your Oldsmobile 442s. These are the cars that would be right at home at cruise night. In quadrant 2, we have low power Coke bottles. I would not consider cars in this quadrant to be muscle cars, but they are muscle car inspired. Cars I would put in here are mostly Japanese, as the Japanese sports cars of the 70s and 80s looked like slimmed down American muscle cars without the V8 under the hood. Look no further than the Ken Mary Skyline. This little guy debuted in 1973 at the peak of the muscle car craze and borrowed the Coke bottle styling to a T. The Ken Mary is like a 7/8 scale 71 Challenger. I love it. And that's not the only example. Toyota's Mark I Celica liftback is a dead ringer for the 68 Mustang Fastback. From the side anyways. And Toyota didn't stop there. They really loved that muscle car aesthetic. The Mark II Supra and James Pumphrey's own AE86 also had very muscly dimensions. They just weren't that quick. So that takes us to quadrant 3. The hatchback leaning low power cars? Well, they're not muscle cars, right? Any car with lower power, a hatchback, and most likely 4 doors probably isn't even rear wheel drive and would struggle to meet the quick for its time requirement. I don't have much in that quadrant, but I do have one very weird example that I want to mention, the AMC Gremlin. The AMC Gremlin was famously first sketched on the back of an airline barf bag and had the misfortune of launching on April Fool's Day. No wonder people thought this thing was a joke. While the early 6-cylinder Gremlins are certainly not muscle cars, that discussion gets a little more difficult when you remember the 1972 Gremlin X, powered by a 304 cubic inch V8, good for 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds. Now, I'll admit that's not competitive with muscle cars from that same year, so I don't know if I'd call it quick for the time, but it was still a compact car with a V8, and that's pretty rad. For fun, I Googled Hellcat Gremlin, and I found this post on John G's Mopar page. Just look at this thing. Shine on, you crazy diamond, shine on. All right, let's talk about the cars of quadrant number 4, or as I like to call them, muscle cars in disguise, or cars that might get me hate mail. I haven't decided which. The crossover segment is pretty interesting. What started out as cars for people who liked sedans but wanted to sit high up like an SUV has become the foremost segment in the industry. And guess what? There are sneaky little muscle cars hiding in this segment if you're willing to bend the rules just a little bit. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I was gonna name this video, "This Infiniti crossover is a muscle car, I'll prove it." But the problem is, the FX35 I was gonna use as an example just didn't work. It is front engine, rear wheel drive. It's basically got 4 seats since the middle rear seat is useless, and it's quick for its segment, not for the time. That's the problem. The 2012 FX35 could do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. For comparison, the Challenger RT from that same year could do it a second faster. That's a pretty wide margin. Not close enough for me to successfully make the argument, even though I really wanted to. But I still think there are a few crossover muscle cars out there. Since the segment is growing so much, manufacturers are pumping up the performance to stand out. In 2009, Infiniti released the FX50, which thanks to its 5-liter V8, could do 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, which is 4/10 faster than the Challenger RT that year. The reason for this speed is something I haven't mentioned yet, and it's an advantage I think disqualifies a car from being a muscle car. All-wheel drive. If it weren't for that little asterisk, I would have gotten away with my cheeky clickbait title, but I just couldn't do it. The AMG GLE 63 S Coupe has all the swagger and beefy proportions of a fastback muscle car, and the 603 horsepower V8 will scoot you from 0 to the Air One market in 3.7 seconds, which I will say is quick as heck. But it can only do that thanks to the grip afforded by all-wheel drive. There's an arm race happening between all the luxury crossover manufacturers over who can build the baddest and fastest machine, and that secret sauce that all of them use is all-wheel drive. The Porsche Macan, the Audi Q8, the Urus, whatever X car BMW makes right now, they can all do numbers that would embarrass our favorite muscle cars. That's only because all 4 wheels are putting that power to the ground. But that's not to say that there aren't cars in the 4th quadrant that qualify as truly undercover muscle cars. The rear-wheel drive version of the Kia Stinger does 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. That's quick, and it's practical as heck with that liftback. Another car I haven't mentioned yet, I think the BMW M2 Competition could be considered a muscle car. It's one of BMW's smaller cars, but it's got a big engine. It's capable of 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. That's insane. Looking at the muscle car matrix, I think it's safe to say that the definition of a muscle car has shifted over time. At first, they were big sedans with big motors, made for American dirt ovals and airstrips. Then, the Coke bottle formula hit its stride and became the blueprint for all sorts of cars, both here in the States and abroad. Obviously, Quadrant 1 is home to the true muscle cars, your Challengers, the Chargers, Mustangs, and Camaros. Sadly, there's not a lot of true muscle cars left today, but if the 4-seat, rear-wheel drive, quick for its time muscle car ever does leave us, I think the muscle car spirit is going to live on in other, stranger forms. Today, cars can be muscle cars within their own segments, giving drivers the screaming stoplight to stoplight experience of yesteryear with all the comfort and blazing performance only possible with today's technology. And I think that's pretty sick. Let me know what you think in the comments. Can a crossover be a muscle car? I think I made a pretty good argument. So I want to know what your favorite oddball muscle car is. Maybe there are some glaring examples that I totally missed. I'd like to hear it. I want to be in the comments with you guys discussing it, which I will be. Check out the Donut Underground if you want to get some behind the scenes videos, access to a private Discord, and exclusive stickers and such. We're not putting any regular stuff behind a paywall. This is just for the hardcore donut fans. Be nice. See you next time.
Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Pumphrey from the future, i.e. the real Neo. President Pumphrey sent me back in time to let you know that today, Cyber Monday 2020, everything on donutmedia.com is 25% off. I guess it's a discount if you want some shirts or hats or whatever. I gotta go save the world. This is a laser gun. I got a plug in the back of my head.